Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to smartwatches, it seems like there's so many to choose from right now, and if it's confusing for me, then I know it's going to be confusing for others. So I wanted to do a quick review of 4 very different types of smartwatches across different price points to hopefully give you guys some helpful info on which might be the best for you. We're going to be covering everything from the unboxing, the design, before comparing certain features and capabilities. But if there's a particular watch that you're interested in, then you can always just jump straight to that by clicking one of the timestamps in the description. Hopefully by the time we've finished, you should have a really good idea of which one is best for you. And if you're new to the channel, just a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button for more product reviews and productivity hacks as well. So with that in mind, let's get into it. First off, let's start with the smallest and cheapest smartwatch on this shortlist at $99, the Fitbit Charge 4. I say watch, but to be honest, this is more of a fitness tracker really than a smartwatch. Now Fitbit obviously have a huge range of fitness watches to choose from, but they made a name for themselves in the fitness tracker category, so that's why I'm testing their Charge 4 model. I have the black version here, but it's also available in rosewood, dark blue, or a special edition granite option. There's no LTE or cellular option, but it does come with its own GPS system, so you can use it to track your runs without your phone. In terms of some of the key features, it offers up to 7 days of battery life, oxygen saturation, heart rate tracking, heart rate zones, and it's waterproof up to 50 meters as well. It does also offer music support in terms of Spotify connectivity via your phone, but you won't be able to download songs directly to the watch. In theory, the band also offers contactless payment, but this is one of the areas you need to be really careful with, because only a very small number of banks actually support Fitbit payment currently, so be sure to check if your cards will actually work first, if that's something you'd be interested in. When it comes to the unboxing experience, the packaging itself is pretty basic, but probably what you'd expect for the price point. Inside the box, you get a spare band if your wrist is a little larger, as well as some instructions, a charging cable which seems pretty sturdy, but unfortunately only USB-A and not USB-C, and then of course there's the watch itself. The watch feels really lightweight when you first pick it up, but we'll cover the full design of the watch in a moment. In terms of the setup process, it's actually pretty straightforward, and if you have an Android, it should pick up the watch automatically. On the iPhone, you simply download the Fitbit app, and from there everything was super easy. Once you've gone through the setup, which takes just a couple of minutes, you'll get to the main Fitbit app itself. Personally, I think the app is actually pretty good, and it wins big points for simplicity and just presenting some basic info. The main app screen is essentially a dashboard showing you your steps, kilometers run, calories, and also how many floors you've climbed. You can also access features such as stress management, your sleep patterns, mindfulness, resting heart rate, weight goals, and you can even log water and food intake as well. And at the bottom of the app, there's also a community tab as well, which helps you connect with friends and share challenges. One negative here for the Fitbit is that a subscription to Fitbit Premium will cost you about $7 per month, which supposedly gives you access to certain fitness programs as well as some more advanced metrics. To be honest, this isn't something I would ever pay for, and I think if you're buying a fitness tracker, it should come with all the features available and not make you have to pay extra for things, so that's definitely a negative for the Charge 4 in my opinion. Finally, when it comes to the design and usability of the Charge 4, despite it being so small, it actually has a decent touchscreen which allows you to do some basic swiping, but there's no external buttons on the screen. The screen itself is quite small, and that's deliberate for this model, so they've tried to make it a very small and lightweight machine. It's only 25 grams or 0.88 ounces, which makes it by far the lightest smartwatch on this list. What I like about the design is that it's really subtle, and so it's meant to be worn without too much notice. Personally though, I think the band is too wide. It's not as good as the old Jawbone Up or the Fitbit Flex 2 in terms of simplicity, both of which have been discontinued, but had much smaller and thinner designs, albeit without heart rate tracking or other features. I really hope Fitbit are able to transition back to this design at some point, because I think there's a real market for people that just want to wear something to bed or out and about casually that is totally unnoticeable on the wrist. The only other thing I'd say about the design of the Charge 4 is that I found the strap quite annoying. It's really stiff and also pinches in certain places, so it's not something I enjoyed wearing for sleep tracking, and it's not something you can lie flat either. In terms of the usability of the touchscreen interface, it's pretty simple and easy to use. Once the watch is on your wrist, you can pinch it on the left side to bring up the menu, and then from there you can either swipe up or down to access the main stats, or swipe left to access your apps, as well as some other settings. Receiving calls and notifications are pretty basic, and you essentially get a small vibration or an alarm when something is happening. So in summary, I think the Charge 4 is a great all-round option at the cheaper end of the price spectrum. I've personally been quite impressed with the amount of features it's packed in, and if you're looking for something small and subtle with lots of capabilities, then this is a really good option. Next up, we've got the Skagen Hybrid watch from Fossil, which costs around $200. Now this is a hybrid watch, which means it's a slightly different format to the other watches on the list. The screen itself is actually an e-ink screen, very similar to what you'd find on a Kindle. The main benefit of that is twofold. Firstly, the battery life on the watch is incredible. I've been using mine for 3 weeks now and still haven't had to charge it. And secondly, the e-ink screen performs really well in direct sun, which, as you can see compared to some of the other watches, is a huge bonus. In terms of the unboxing of the watch, it's again a pretty basic experience, so I don't have much to report here other than a more general point that it's a shame to see a plastic display on the front. I know it's important to showcase the watch, but I think it's high time plastic was removed completely from packaging altogether. After you've removed the watch inside the box, you get some basic instructions as well as a USB-A charging cable. Again here, it's a shame not to see USB-C given that's where things are headed. But on the other hand, the connection mechanism of the charger to the watch is very similar to Apple's MagSafe connection, so the watch just really easily snaps onto the charging dock without you having to figure out the alignment. If you compare this versus other watches on the list, you can see that the Fitbit is ever so slightly more difficult, and then the Garmin performs very poorly here, with a rubbish old school cord connection which based on past experience becomes very loose over time. Anyway, back to the Skagen and the main event of this watch, which is the design itself. It's an absolute stunning watch to look at, and the beautiful design definitely embodies the really cool and simple Danish aesthetic, which is what Fossil are going for here. It's actually incredibly lightweight as well, at 60 grams or 2.1 ounces, despite its size, and the 3 buttons on the side hark back to a more simplistic era before smartwatches came onto the scene. The only downside of this, of course, is if you're left-handed and like to wear your watch on your right hand, then the lack of buttons on both sides might just annoy you. The other big plus for this watch is the strap, and I honestly can't be more complimentary about this strap. It's actually made from silicone, but it looks and feels more like a cotton strap. Of all of the smartwatch straps that I've tested so far, it's definitely my favourite to look at, and the classic enclosure on the back just again makes it look so slick. The one downside of this strap is that it's not great for working out with. Some of the other watches feature holes in them to help disperse the sweat from your workout and to stop it building up. That being said, something tells me that if you're going for this watch in the first place, you're unlikely going to be using it as a fitness fanatic. The final thing to talk about is some of the features of this watch, which are pretty basic as you'd expect. Obviously it can do active heart rate tracking and actually shows this on the main face. Beyond that, all of the info is synced directly from your phone, so things like weather and notifications appear via the connection from your phone. Despite its basic UI, it does actually claim to be able to allow notifications from loads of apps as far as I can tell, but you'll just have to manually select which ones you want to receive notifications from. And just bear in mind that this will only allow you to receive notifications, so if you're thinking you'll be able to reply to things or take calls on the watch itself, then think again. Personally, I found this a bit temperamental and couldn't get certain things to work. I'm sure they would eventually with enough fiddling in the settings, but personally this isn't a watch that I'd use for that purpose anyway. Finally, the app itself is extremely basic and probably the worst aspect of this watch. The UI is horrible and I found navigating it really difficult. In summary though, this is a brilliantly designed hybrid watch that looks stunning and does some basic things really well. But it's not a watch I can recommend for fitness, nor is it one I can recommend if you're someone that likes to manage notifications from your wrist. Next up, we're going to talk about the most expensive smartwatch on this list, which is the Garmin Fenix Solar Edition. Now the Garmin Fenix 6 is usually around the $500 mark, but add in the solar screen and premium features and this precise model is up to around $800. Now that's a hell of a lot to spend on a smartwatch, which will inevitably be outdated in a couple of years, so we're not off to a great start with the Garmin already. The premium features are not things that should be optional extras in my opinion. If you want to download songs on your watch or be able to track your skiing, neither the Apple Watch or the Samsung Watch will charge you extra for these things. So let's put the price point to one side for the moment and talk about the unboxing experience. Now for the price you're forking out for this watch, the unboxing experience really isn't doing it for me here. It's just a really simple square box with a bit of foam holding the watch in place. Beyond this, you obviously get the usual instruction manual as well as a USB-C charging cable with, what we've already covered, a horrible connector on the end. Now if I'm paying $800 for a tech product, the least you could do is provide a power plug, USB-C and a charging mechanism that connects to the watch seamlessly and also lets me lie the watch flat when it's charging. Garmin is really failing on all of these points, so again we have another huge negative early on for this watch. In terms of the setup process for the watch, it's actually pretty painful. I had a really hard time with the watch not connecting to the phone for a while, and in the end had to do a watch reset to get everything working. Garmin pitched this as a multi-sport all-rounder smartwatch for everything, but like Fitbit, if you're planning on using the Garmin for things like payment, then you might end up being disappointed because only a select number of banks are actually currently supported as part of Garmin Pay. So again here, make sure you double check if your bank is supported before buying. Aside from this, when it comes to the Garmin app on your phone, which you'll need to get the watch working and syncing properly, it's really not great. And again for the price, you'd expect a much smoother all-round app experience, and the constant prompts to use the Garmin App Store or Garmin Connect for certain things becomes really tiresome after a while. Moving on to the design of the smartwatch, it's clearly intended as a rugged outdoor device. It's definitely the most sturdy and resilient looking of all the other smartwatches, and that's probably part of the reason that Garmin has an ongoing partnership with the US military. If you're in a situation where you're stuck in the desert, out in quite desolate terrain, or running Ironmans regularly, you're not going to be worried about damaging this watch. I suppose you could argue that's its plus point, and for some people it would be, but for most, the design of the watch is not going to work. It looks like a fitness device, so if you're someone that wants to wear your watch to a nice restaurant or to an important meeting, you're probably more likely to take this off and just use it when you're doing sports. I have the 47mm version here, which is the middle-sized option, and it just feels so big and heavy on my wrist. At 85 grams or 3 ounces, it's an absolute beast, and I can't see people with smaller wrists wanting something like this. Let's just quickly cover the strap of the Garmin, which to be honest, whilst I don't really like the look of it, it actually feels quite soft and comfortable versus something like the Fitbit where the strap was quite stiff. It has really good airflow for workouts, which is great, but it's not quite as good as the Apple Watch Nike Band at sweat reduction. Moving on to the screen of this watch, this sadly has to be the biggest failing. Whilst the solar charging element is a great bonus to increase battery life of up to 3 to 4 days, which is great if you're planning on going on long treks, bike rides or ultra marathons, that's where the good vibes end for this screen. As I mentioned earlier, I tested all of these watches outside for various different fitness activities, and the Garmin screen just sucks, to put it bluntly. It's so faint you can't actually read any of the stats it's trying to show you in direct sun. And even the tiny Fitbit screen performed better here, with the Apple Watch and the Skagen being the best by far. To be honest, even when you can see the screen, the UI interface is not good. It's far too simplistic and basic for a screen of this size. I feel like I'm looking at a calculator from the 90s, along with menu buttons around the bezel which you can't actually read. The other thing that might shock you for a watch that's $800 is a lack of a touchscreen. Yes, that's right, there's no touchscreen on this Garmin model. So all of your input has to be done via the buttons on each side of the watch. Even after getting used to this, I found this a complete bore. My old Casio watch had a better UI and it's worth $20 and it's 10 years old. In summary, it won't be any surprise to you that I'm not a huge fan of the Garmin watch. There's far too many negatives for me to recommend this to you unless you're hardcore into certain sports. Now some of you may argue that there are other Garmin models out there and why didn't I test some of those? Well, that's true, and there are Garmin models with a touchscreen, but the reality is the Fenix 6 is supposed to be their leading model. To be honest, where this watch does perform well is in its ability to select a vast array of multiple sports, and the capability on so many to select specific drills if you want to practice a particular skill over and over. It also puts fitness metrics at the forefront of its UI, so data points such as VO2 max, which are more hidden in the Apple Watch, are given prime position, and the app will encourage you to track and improve things over time. So again, if you're really into fitness and sports and you want to get really deep and detailed on certain metrics, then that's when I'd recommend you consider looking into Garmin. When it comes to the Apple Watch, I'm going to whiz through this one faster as I've already done an in-depth review of the Apple Watch 6, which I'll link to you here as well as in the description. But in terms of a comparison with the other watches on this list, the first thing to say is that the unboxing experience for a $400 watch is exactly what we've come to expect from an Apple product. You really feel like you're opening up something valuable and a little bit special. Beyond this, the setup process is super simple and by far the easiest of all the smartwatches. You literally just hold the watch near your iPhone and all of your data is copied across and ready to use automatically. In fact, the only thing you'll have to set up manually will be Apple Pay. I guess for security reasons, it won't let you copy your card details from your phone, which I think is a good thing. The first thing you'll notice once the watch is set up is just how good the UX and UI is. It's really no comparison to the others, it's just so much more intuitive and simpler. With the exception of the Skagen, which has the digital ink screen, the Apple Watch has the brightest display and can take direct sunlight really easily. Obviously the big downside of this is that the battery life is very limited. In fact, with all these capabilities, the battery typically only lasts for a day before then needing to recharge. And that's an issue if you're someone who really values sleep tracking, because you're most likely going to want to charge the watch at night when you want to be able to track your sleep. On the whole though, the Apple Watch touchscreen is brilliantly intuitive and amazingly responsive, but just one watch out would be in water. If you're a swimmer, you might find the touchscreen works less well in the water, something I'm really hoping they'll improve over time. Another negative of the Apple Watch is that it requires an iPhone to work with it. None of the other watches in this review have that limitation, and if you want one, it's just something that you'll have to accept. As a result, and as you'd expect, the overall interface between the iPhone and the Apple Watch is the best by far. Receiving notifications and replying to things as an input device is an absolute breeze. You'll also be able to answer calls directly on the watch itself, so unlike the Skagen or the Fitbit, you can actually immediately start a call without needing to find your phone first. Listening to audiobooks or podcasts or music is also the best experience of them all, and connecting your AirPods or other headphones is so straightforward if they've already been paired to your iPhone before. The design itself is so slick and easily blends in with any outfit, and there's also a multitude of strap options to suit different occasions, and if you're anything like me, you'll want to start building a small collection. At 64 grams or 2.2 ounces, the 44mm aluminium option is also light in comparison to the 47mm Garmin, which weighs 85 grams. In terms of other customizations, the Apple Watch easily has the best watch face options, and most of them are all free as well. Finally, the Apple Watch has the best approach to holistic wellness and mental health. It gives you regular reminders to move around and take a breather, and the meditation functionality is brilliant. It seems like the care and thought they put into this is miles ahead of the competition. Overall, I'm going to be honest with you here guys and say that for me personally, the Apple Watch is by far my favourite of the lot. It's just such a brilliant all-rounder, its amazing UX combined with the stunning hardware and the smoothness with the Apple ecosystem make it the must-buy smartwatch from my perspective if you've already got an iPhone. So guys, in summary, ultimately there's a smartwatch out there for everyone that will suit your needs. If you're someone that is a hardcore fitness enthusiast, then you might want to check out the Garmin. Although be prepared to put up with a shoddy UI, lack of a touchscreen, a really low light screen that's difficult to read, lack of holistic features like payment, as well as a clunky app store. Just remember the price tag as well may be hugely expensive. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're looking for a much more basic watch that simply tracks heart rate as well as a few other functions, but value the design of what's on your wrist, then the Skagen by Fossil is definitely worth checking out. I'm a real fan of the simplicity of this watch all round, but just remember its features are basic and its app is not the best. If you're looking for something with a few more features but don't want the bulk of some of the bigger smartwatches out there, then definitely check out the Fitbit Charge 4. I think the design could be slimmer, and in all likelihood it will be in the future, but for its size and price and weight, it really does pack a punch. If that doesn't sound like you and you want something that's super easy to use, intuitive, And if you're someone that uses a lot of apps and you're really into your fitness and holistic wellness, then frankly, there's still no better option than the Apple Watch. It really is the best all-rounder by far, and for the price tag, if you're going to utilise the features, then it's well worth the money. There's unlikely to be any big updates planned for the Apple Watch 7 as well, so there might not be much to gain from waiting. Just remember that the big drawback of the Apple Watch is that you need an iPhone for it to work at all. But if you're firmly embedded in the Apple ecosystem, then there really is no better smartwatch on the market. Finally, the only other watch I wanted to review that's not on this list is Samsung's Galaxy Watch. Next month, there's rumours that Samsung is preparing to unveil a substantial upgrade to their watch lineup, so as soon as that drops, I'll be doing a separate review on that. If you're considering this list, then the Samsung Watch is very similar in capabilities to the Apple Watch. So if you're an Android user and you can't get an Apple Watch, then the Samsung is definitely something you should be waiting for in August. In the meantime, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped figuring out which smartwatch might be right for you. Stay tuned for more content soon, and remember to subscribe for more.